U2L8 AAGPBL Primary Source Reading Directions. Below is an interview with Lou Erickson, an AAGPBL player. Read the interview and answer the questions throughout the reading. This interview comes from the book We Were All American Girls, Interviews with Players of the AAGPBL 1943 to 1954 by Jim Sargent. Note, all the text in red text are the questions that the interviewer asks. All of the text in green text is Lou's response to the interview questions. Lou Erickson Sawyer, Racine, 1948, Rockford, 1949 to 1950. Interviewed on November 9th, 2011. Born 1929, height 5'9", weight 160, position pitcher, batted right through right. All-Star Team 1949, career batting average .214 in 3 seasons. Lifetime pitching record 37 to 17, including the 4-1 in playoffs in 1949 and 1950. Luis Lou Erickson was born and raised in Arcadia, a town of 1,900 in western Wisconsin. Baseball was America's pastime, and Louise learned to play catch with her father, who worked as a technician for the local creamery and was a pitcher on the town team. Known as the town tomboy, she played pickup ball games with her 5 younger brothers, other boys, and a girlfriend. Like most kids, they used makeshift equipment like boards for bases, and they hit an old taped ball with a bat that had been fixed. In the 1940s, towns often had baseball teams that played each other, and Louise, a diamond in the rough at 5'9" and 150 pounds, hung around Arcadia's ballpark, shaking fly balls the men didn't want to chase. In 1946, another team manager sent her name to the All-American League. Erickson graduated from Arcadia High in June, after refusing her coach's request for 2 years to be the only girl on the boys' varsity. She had few plans for the future, and she worked as the hired man on her grandparents' farms. The AAGPBL changed Erickson's life forever. In 1948, she received a letter from the league's headquarters in Chicago inviting her to the Windy City for a tryout. The letter, as prize, was welcome, because what better living could a girl earn than by playing professional baseball? On June 2nd, her 19th birthday, Louise, after buying a ball glove and spikes, boarded a train for the 300-mile journey to Chicago. Arriving at Shoe Bridge Field, the inexperienced but talented and eager Arcadia girl met supervisor Lenny Zintak and worked out, at first in the outfield but soon as a pitcher. 10 days later, after Zintak showed the right-hander how to change speeds on her pitches, she rode a train to Chicago's South Side, pitched and won an exhibition over the Blue Island Stars. Erickson was sent to the Racine Bells, and within a few days, manager Leo Murphy used her in relief. She worked 4.2 innings. The Bells came back to win, and Lou, as Murphy dubbed her nickname Toots was out of bounds, had her second ever victory. Traded to the Rockford Peaches in 1949, Erickson was developed into a starting pitcher by Bill Allington, a master of teaching the game. She spent 2 years with the Peaches, winning a total of 33 games, and Rockford won the Shaughnessy Playoff Championship in 1949 and 1950. Playing professional baseball was really an eye-opener experience for me, Lou recalled. We had never traveled anyplace. Her family didn't own a car, and Lou didn't own one until she married Burton Sawyer, 2 months after the 1950 season ended. The brown-eyed brunette had many highlighted experiences, such as notching victory number 11 by outlasting Maxine Klein and the Fort Worth Daisies 3-2, in a 16-inning marathon on a muggy day in July of 1949 with the temperatures over 90 degrees. Erickson, with her fastball, different curves, and changeup, displayed sharp control, and she was one of the league's most effective hurlers for 2 seasons. Cheerful, down-to-earth, and hardworking, she loved the game and her teammates, but she disliked the endless bus trips, and she left baseball to get married. A fine ball player who returned to her roots in Arcadia, Lou Sawyer enjoyed their 2 children and 57 years of marriage before Burton passed away. She didn't participate in the making of the movie A League of Their Own, but the 1992 film made the league famous. Arcadia's elaborate memorial park has monuments to honor American soldiers from all wars. Tour buses come to town several days a week in warm weather, and the All-American pitcher often got aboard to tell her unique baseball story. So the interviewer says, "How did you get interested in baseball when you were growing up?" And Lou says, "I was born in 1929 and raised in Arcadia, Wisconsin. I lived there all my life. My parents were Orlin and Sadie Erickson. I had five brothers and one sister: Roland, Bud, Arlen Jr., Don, Sam, and Bob, and my sister is Sue. Our small town population was 1,900, and when I received a letter from the All American League asking me to try out in 1948, which was 2 years after I graduated from Arcadia High School." "Did you play ball in school or on a local team before the league contacted you?" "I had no experience whatsoever. I didn't even have a glove. We just had a bunch of kids in the neighborhood and we played out in the streets. We put boards down for the bases and played pickup ball. Back in the 40s, every little town around here had a men's baseball team, and they'd play each other on Sunday afternoon. On the Arcadia team, I had an Uncle Jim, and on the team in Whitehall, about 15 miles northeast of here, I had an Uncle Basil. They were brothers. Whenever the Arcadia team had practice and the ballpark was only a block away from our house, I'd go and be the tomboy in the outfield shaking balls the men didn't want to chase. That's all the baseball experience I had until I received this letter from the league inviting me to come to Chicago and try out. I've never heard of the All American League. It was a total surprise to me." You graduated from high school in 1946, but didn't join the league until 1948. What did you do in between those times? Lou says, "I worked on the farm. My grandparents on both sides, the Hansons and the Ericksons, were brought up on farms near Arcadia, and I was the hired man, so to speak, doing all the hard work. You know, in the movie, A League of Their Own, where the scout finds the girls milking cows? They could have found me there. That's what I was doing." You received a letter from the league around the beginning of 1948 season. I received the letter on the last day of May, and on June 2nd, 1948, my 19th birthday, I left for Chicago on my first ever train ride. I had to buy a glove and spikes because I didn't have either one. I started from scratch. What was it like when you arrived in Chicago? When I reported to the tryout camp, located on 74th and Aberdeen Streets in Chicago at Shoebridge Field, the man running the show was Lenny Zandzek. He said, "What position do you play?" "Well, how do you say shaking balls in the outfield for a men's team?" The first couple of days, I played the outfield, and I was shaking fly balls. I was wheeling the ball in to the cutout person, and I guess I was throwing the ball pretty hard and pretty straight, and Lenny saw that. After 2 days, he said, "How would you like to try pitching?" Everybody always needed pitching. I thought, well, I'm down here, I might as well give it a try. For the next week, we worked on control, and Lenny taught me how to throw a curveball and all that good stuff. After about 10 days, Lenny said, "I'm going to an exhibition game tonight down in South Chicago, and I want you to pitch the game." I went with Lenny and the team for about an hour ride, and we beat the Blue Island Stars 24-2. I couldn't believe it, but I found the clipping in my brother's military stuff, and that's how I know the score. That was my total experience when I was sent over to the Racine Bells in 1948. Your stats show you got into 3 games, but you won once. One night in Fort Wayne, the starting pitcher was hit for 5 runs. Right off the bat, the manager, Leo Murphy, looked at me and said, "Lou, warm up." That didn't take very long because I had thrown batting practice, which I did about every day. So I went in and held Fort Wayne for 4.2 innings, and we came back and won the game. I have the clipping too. So that was my second win at that point, and the first one came in the exhibition in Chicago. After the season, Rockford picked me up, and in the spring training, Bill Ailington said, "I'm going to make a starting pitcher out of you." That's the rest of the story, and it turned out pretty good because the Peaches won championships both years. Counting the playoffs, I was 19-6 in 1949, and I was 17-11 in 1950. I've got 2 full scrapbooks from cover to cover, and I never put a clipping in either one. My mother and my brother in the military put those books together, and when I came home at the end of the season, I had a full scrapbook for each year. I never looked at those scrapbooks until the movie came out in 1992. Were you involved in the making of A League of Their Own at Evansville? I received the invitation, and that invitation is still in my drawer. I did not go down there. Had I known then what I later found out from other ball players, I would have gone. But for me, just going alone was hard. I don't drive, and my husband Burton was working full time, and my son and my daughter were both working. Burton and I were married 57 years when my husband passed away in 2007. We got married in November 1950, 2 months after the end of the season. Do you have favorite memories from Rockford in 1949 and 1950s? Playing professional baseball was really an eye-opening experience for me. We had never traveled anyplace. My family didn't even own a car. I never had a car until I got married. As far as any of us got was out of the farm. If Uncle Nick was going, he lived in Arcadia. They didn't have any kids, but there were four of us kids and mom and dad, and we'd pile in the car and go out and visit my mom's family. That was the extent of my traveling before 1948. All those bus trips in the league, that kind of got me. After 3 years of bus travel and winning 2 championships, there was only one place to go, and that was down. Lois Florech, Rockford's star pitcher, was quitting the same year I was, so that took half the Peaches pitching staff. After 3 years, at the ripe old age of 21, I had enough. Did you go by Lou or Luis? The first time I was shipped over to meet the Bells in 1948, I had to meet them in Peoria. So I took the train from Chicago after I signed my contract in the Wrigley building. I joined the Bells in the lobby of the hotel at Peoria. The manager, Pop Murphy, and the chaperone, Willie Wilson, were waiting for me, and they said, "You must be Luis." And I said, "Yeah." They said, "What's your nickname?" I told them what my grandpa named me when I was 4, and that was Toots. They said, "We can't call you Toots." They cut Luis down to Lou. There are old timers in Arcadia who still call me Toots, but the ball club named me Lou. What were the main pitches that you threw? I threw fastball, curve, and changeup. I changed speeds on the fastball and the curve. I threw fast curves, slow curves, fastball, and changeups. A changeup is still the best pitch. You can get a major leaguer out on a changeup. The way they stand up there and swing. Did you make some good friends in the league? Oh, yes, at this year's San Diego reunion, I had a real nice visit with Joyce Hill Westcott. If there are any doings around the state, we meet at those events. I knew Sophie Curries well, and if there's an event, I saw her. We visited Joyce Westerman this past summer, July of 2011, and she has a great deal of memorabilia, a full scrapbook from each season, and I also a uniform Peoria. I had the scrapbooks for 2 full seasons with the Rockford, and I have several baseballs and Rockford pennants, the team pictures, and the yearbook from Racine and Peoria. Those will go to the kids at the right time. I guess you would say the leagues made a big impact on your life. Yes, but the movie made the biggest impact. My neighbors here didn't know I played ball. The old timers knew, but the younger people never heard of the All American League. When the movie came out, I started getting phone calls. Also, the tour buses started coming by my house, and now I talk to them all summer long. After the movie came out, I had to dig out my memorabilia because everybody wants to see it. I sell my scrapbooks, my spikes, and a couple of my baseball caps, but not my glove. When Lois Florich and I quit after the 1950 season, she gave me her glove and I gave her mine because we weren't coming back. I coached the high school summer league for 3 or 4 years, and I coached the ladies senior softball team for 3 years. I coached and umpired as also. I used to put my duffel bag with my glove and spikes and stuff on the bench when I was umping, and someone stole the glove. So Lois's glove is gone, and Lois has passed away. Someone from Rockford searched it out and found that my glove was sold at a garage sale. I'll bet that glove is being used today. The league was the best 3 years of my life, and I'll never forget those years. The hot, muggy days we had this summer remind me of one memorable experience at Fort Wayne, Indiana in the summer of 1949. We were riding the bus to the ballpark from the hotel, and we went past one of those signs that had the temperature on the outside gauge, and it said 90 degrees. Guess whose turn it was to pitch? The game went 16 innings, and Fort Wayne's Maxie Klein and I both pitched the whole 16 innings, and we won. You think we threw only 100 pitches? I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. Bill Allington was trying to find a way to tie a towel on me so I could keep my pitching hand dry. Everything on me was wet. Even my socks and shoes were wet. There's no way you could legally have a towel out there. but I got into a lot of dirt. Poor Maxie, she went all the way too. I pitched a couple of 14-inning games, but that's as far as I wanted to go. The 16-inning game was a doubleheader in our league, 7 innings in the opener and 9 in the late game, but those years were the best things that ever happened to me.